Hello and welcome. I'm Rojin Mukrian, and today I have the honor to moderate the first panel of this conference. I would like to take the opportunity and to thank the organizers for putting such an impressive panel together and for this necessary conference in general. In this panel, thank you. In this conference, in this panel, we have 6 speakers who will share their deep insights regarding the, quote, historical roots of the current crisis, end of quote, from different angles. We have two and a half hours total for this panel. For the first hour and a half, each speaker has maximum of 15 minutes to deliver their talk. So I'll let each speaker to know when they have 2 minutes left to wrap up their talk. After this, we will open the floor for questions and answers. Our first speakers was Mr. Kostas Mavridis. He is a member of the European Parliament, but unfortunately, he's not here yet with us. So I will start the talk with Professor Abbas Vali. Professor Abbas Vali is from Mahabad, a city in Eastern Kurdistan or northwest Iran. He began his academic career in 1986 at the University of Wales at Swansea, where he taught political theory and Middle Eastern politics. So far, he has authored 5 books and more than 40 articles in academic journals. He is currently working on 2 new books. The first one called Power and Resistance in Kurdistan, which is about to come out next year. And next one after that, which is about to come out in 2025, called Iran, the Republic of Violence. Professor Abbas Vali, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, if I could. Yeah. I'd like to thank you, the Democratic Platform of Iran, for inviting me to this session and making it possible for me to talk to you about the political dimensions of the current revolution in Iran. Yesterday, when I was being transported from the railway station to my hotel, I saw a slogan in the wall. It said, the Jina Amini or Mahsa Amini and Jiyan Azadî, woman, life, freedom. It was a very, in my opinion, very interesting start to coming to this city, and also an interesting start probably to this discussion. It gave me a kind of very, I would say, contradictory feeling as to what this revolution was and how it is being perceived. Everything that about this revolution, about woman, life, freedom, became universal. But the people who started it and their cause, which is to remove one of the most vehement dictatorships of this time, our time, have been forgotten. And I follow from here what my colleague just before me said, that this is also a sad note, that despite the fact that this revolution is still going on in Iran, is still the quest for freedom, charging people and forcing them to the streets, and still they are being murdered, imprisoned, tortured. Despite this, we have a situation in which European countries are directly or indirectly dealing with this infamous regime and trying to further their own interests at the expense of justice. I have, in my academic career, seen many incidents of moral degradation, moral decline, but none is so blatant as what happened a few days ago in Belgium. And this is a sad note to start from. And I am very sorry for that. For all the Europeans who are sitting here, I think it's a very, very sardonic note to say that we are in a capital where talking about Jiyan Azadî and all the government which is suppressing Jiyan Azadî is being elevated to the highest positions in United Nations, and also to a situation of a worthy partner, a legitimate partner to do political deals with. I am sorry about that. Iranian history is inundated with revolutions and upheavals. The modern history of Iran, starting from 1905, starts with the revolution. And there are also various upheavals. We have it in 1926, we have it in the collapse of the Pahlavi regime in 1941. And we have it in the uprising for the nationalization of oil in 1953, and then, above all, the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which was clearly, as our colleague said, hijacked and turned to a springboard for a very undemocratic movement and undemocratic regime in Iran. But this one, the revolution of Jiyan Azadî, is like no other. It is a very specific, very, very unique revolution in the history of modern Iran. Not just because of its dynamics, not just because of its subject, but also because of the location of this revolutionary movement. This revolutionary movement in Iran did not originate or start in the center. It originated and started in the peripheral ethnic linguistic communities whose representatives are sitting here. This is a very important change in the historical formation of Iranian politics. Now we have the dynamics of this revolution coming from periphery and moving the center. This change is unique in Iranian history, and it is to be appreciated, and its repercussions are still reverberating throughout Iran. Even now, we can see that when this revolution is somehow slowed down, we see that it is Balouchistan, which is the beating heart of this revolution. It is not Tehran, it is not Isfahan, it is not Mashhad, it is Baluchistan. And when it started, it was not Tehran, it was not Isfahan, it was not Mashhad, it was Saqqez, it was Sine, Sanandaj, and subsequently Mahabad and Bokan, down to furthest part of the Kurdish territory in Iran. This revolution, in a sense, as I said, has specific features. And this is that this is a revolution of a civil society against the state. This is the revolution of civil society against the state, but also against the patriarchal structure of Iranian family. This is a revolution of freedom, not just concerned with the removal of the state, but also it is concerned with reforming the patriarchal and paternalistic structure of Iranian family. This is particularly important aspect of this revolution. When I say this is the revolution of civil society, we must admit that in the making of this revolution, political forces and political parties did not, in that respect, have a very direct role. But this was really an uprising from the very heart, the bottom of the, if you like, the structure of civil society. This revolution turned civil society from a center of resistance to a center of opposition. This was one of the most important achievements of this movement. The other important thing that this revolution achieved, and it is unique in Iranian history, is the creation of a democratic, pluralistic identity. The identity which is maybe called the identity of Jiyan, Azadî, or Jina identity, is democratic and pluralistic. Under its umbrella, we have a variety of identities. People from different sexual identities, different ethnic national identities, different class backgrounds, and different religious identities, and different linguistic identities. But what is very important is that this Jina identity that I am talking about created this democratic, pluralistic identity and allowed it to be spoken and expressed in different languages in different parts of Iran. Balouchis, Arabs, Kurds, Turkmens, Turkish Azeri Turks, they all recited and repeated their slogan in their own languages. And this is very interesting that we have this democratic pluralist identity, which is also multiglossial. It is multilingual. It is very important. And also, Iranian politics is not strange to formation of various kind of fronts and parties. But what was unique about this interesting situation was that there was a unity without a formal front being formed. And this unity meant that there was not the need to suppress the differences of all those people and those ethnicities, religions, sexualities, which came under this particular umbrella, they were able and allowed to keep their own individual identities. This is a fundamentally modern phenomenon, that you have a democratic pluralist identity which appreciates and respects difference rather than killing it and suppressing it. This development, in a sense, was largely appreciated by the people of Iran, but outside Iran, its reception was not that significant, with the exception of the fact that everybody was charged by the idea that women were very prominent, the youth very prominent. That is true. The women and young people were very prominent, but they were fundamental, and also ethnic communities were very prominent. But we should ask why. Why there were women so prominent, why young people were so prominent, why people from ethnic or national communities from very prominent, or working class elements were very prominent in the forefront in the streets fighting with the regime. The reason is this, that this Jina identity, or this revolution of Jiyan, Azadî, woman, life, freedom, was a revolution and is a revolution against three types of apartheid in Iran. I use the term apartheid deliberately because apartheid is a legally sanctioned, politically enforced structure of discriminatory discourses and practices. And we have in Iran, according to this definition, we have sexual apartheid, women, and LGBTQ people and the queer community people are in the center of it. The young are in the center of it. Ethnic communities are in the center of it. And also here, the religious communities are in the center of it. So we have a sexual apartheid. We have an ethnic national apartheid. We have linguistic apartheid. And we have a religious apartheid here. These are all sanctioned by law and supported by violence. The difference between law and violence in the Iranian regime does not exist. In a sense, after the Jina revolution, very blatantly and very openly, law is no longer an instrument of justice. Law is an instrument of violence. It is used in order to sustain an undemocratic, anti-democratic, and theocratic despotism by violence. Now, when we look at these three types of apartheid that I talked about, what is very interesting is that we have the sexual apartheid, we have the religious apartheid, we have national ethnic apartheid and linguistic apartheid. If you look at this, women, people from ethnic national communities, and the young people with different identities are in the intersection of these three or four forms of apartheid. Repression. They are repressed right in the intersection of it. Therefore, it's no surprise. In fact, it is almost anticipated that women, young people, ethnic communities be the subject of this amazing revolution. So this revolution also has another specificity, and this is for the first time we see a revolution in which the subject of it is not a class, is not a nation, but it is also a class, it is also a nation. It is women, it is young, it is ethnic communities, and they are out in the context of a very widespread opposition to this regime, and their idea is a kind of willing. They will change. They will power. We want to change this regime. So when I see here in the West, the slogan is appreciated, but I always feel very sad because the will behind it, the project behind it, the idea behind it, which is to remove this despotic regime in Iran, in the West, has been forgotten. It is my, in a sense, sad reminder that we should try to keep this flame alive, because I am certain that in no time a second wave of this revolution is going to start in Iran with more powerful and more energetic force, which will encompass more people and more territories. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful talk, Professor Abbas Vali. We will move to our next speaker.